Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this very special edition of the 2021 Seidenberg Innovation Awards. You know that I'm Jonathan Hill, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as Dean of the Seidenberg School of Computer Science and Information Systems. And I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our PACE family, friends, and all the supporters who've turned out today to honor one of our own. Want to especially thank our Seidenberg Advisory Board members and delegates who have made the time to come out today. And it's especially important that we take a moment to recognize our sponsors for their truly transformative support. Our title sponsor for SIA this year is Josh Silverman, Chief Executive Officer of Etsy. Our visionary sponsors for today's event include Browseware, Morgan Stanley, the PVH Foundation, thank you so much, and PwC. Our supporter sponsors include Accenture, ADP, Highpoint, National Grid, New York Presbyterian, and Qualitest. And our friend sponsors include Seventh Online, Blue Yonder, Genpact, HKA, Infosys, MuleSoft, and PACE alum and Seidenberg board member Mike Zabranik, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Fiserv. Sirius, Tillerman, Verizon, and Wilkie Farr and Gallagher. And I also want to thank our alumni and friends who have made thoughtful donations of time, talent, and gifts to make this event a success. And we are on track to have this the most successful Seidenberg Innovation Awards in our history. With your support, we are accelerating our mission of STEM diversity and inclusion in higher education and the workforce. And to show our appreciation and demonstrate the power of your investment in the future, we have a video tribute that will show how your partnership is truly making an impact.
Hi, I'm Mike Capone, CEO of Click. I am proud to be an SIA honoree because I believe in driving positive change in our world as part of the work that I and my team are doing at Click together. To be able to do this with my alma mater has special meaning for me, as I know the power of a PACE degree and the impact that PACE grads make in the field and in their communities. Just as I have benefited, I want to ensure that PACE students today have the support needed for them to be good global citizens and continue the work we are doing to positively change the world.
Hello, I'm Surikant, Chairman of Tata Consultancy Services North America and a proud 2015 SIA honoree. As the world rebounds from the impact of COVID-19, it is critical to empower students with 21st century skills so that they can create innovations that benefit society at large. I am extremely proud of TCS's long-standing investments in pioneering STEM education programs like Ignite My Future in School and GoIT. Through these programs, over 1 million K-12 students across America have now gained computational thinking and digital innovation skills. By leveraging the best of TCS, we're building pathways for women, youth, and underserved groups.
I am proud to be associated with Seidenberg School and being an SIA honoree. What impresses me most about the school is its people. The faculty, the administrators, and the students, all who work hard to make this world a better place. As a minority in the technology leadership space, I am very impressed with what the school has been able to accomplish. Being in the top 3% of private colleges in America for most diverse, and having a 29% representation of females in its student body. Very impressive, and way to go, Seidenberg. Thank you for everything that you do, and Congratulations to all of the SIA recipients.
Hi, I am proud to be an SIA honoree for two reasons. I received my undergrad and graduate degrees from PACE, which equipped me very well for the skills needed to have a successful career on Wall Street. I also think it's really important to give back to our next level, our next generation of leaders. Most of you are sitting in that audience right now. Have a good day.
With your support, I'm able to graduate this year with the degree of my dreams and pursue a career in the field of computer science.
Hi, I'm Srinikil Raja. With your support, I was able to stay at school and continue my graduation during the toughest days of my life in this pandemic. I would sincerely thank you for all the support that you have given me.
Your investment has enabled me to pursue computer science research on file system and focus on my studying without financial stress. Thank you.
We are so incredibly thankful to our sponsors, and we are particularly grateful to this year's honoree, one of our very own, Eileen Mahoney. And I think it's appropriate and wonderful that a fellow alum is going to introduce her to us today. And to that end, I'm delighted to introduce our special guest, Vipul Nagrath. Vipul is a double alum and a real leader in our PACE community. Vipul earned a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and a Master of Science in Telecommunications here at the Seidenberg School. So obviously he is incredibly well educated. Vipul is truly an industry leader in technology. He's got over 25 years of innovation and impact in the field. Vipul serves as Senior Vice President, Product Development, Head of Technology, Workforce Now, Major Accounts, and HR Outsourcing at ADP. That is quite an inclusive title. As mentioned, he has been a real leader here at PACE. He serves as a member of the Seidenberg Advisory Board, and he was our honoree last year for the 2020 Seidenberg Innovation Awards. This year, Vipul and his employer ADP are generous supporter sponsors for the 2021 celebration and truly have put their shoulder to the wheel to advance Seidenberg's mission of STEAM diversity, equity, and inclusion. As an honoree and fellow Double PACE alumnus, Vipul is passing the legacy of leadership and impact to officially announce this year's honoree. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to Vipul Nagrath. Vipul, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thrilled to be here today, as I'm a big supporter of the spirit and the goals of the Seidenberg Innovation Awards. I'm humbled to be a part of the vanguard of honorees who contribute to a culture of innovation and inclusion that drives the success of future generations of diverse leaders and pioneers. Today, that legacy continues with the recognition of Eileen Mahoney, the 2021 honoree for innovation in retail technology. Recognizing Eileen is extra special for me and for PACE. Eileen is part of our family as a fellow PACE alumna. She earned a BBA in Management Information Systems. As a female technology leader, Eileen is a brilliant and compelling example of why it is essential to invest in STEM diversity. Eileen embodies the award through her singular record of achievement and performance in the field. In her pivotal leadership as Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer of PVH, She is a rare and relatable role model for women, first-generation strivers, and underrepresented groups who aspire to lead and make positive change. At PVH, Eileen leads the global technology and process group across the fashion and lifestyle company, along with being a corporate officer of the company. She is responsible for developing the strategic direction for PVH's technology and platform solutions, business process and transformation, along with portfolio management and information security. Eileen has won industry accolades for her impact in the field, including Information Age's CIO of the Year in 2019, and induction as a member of IDG's CIO Hall of Fame. Eileen also leads by example through her service on many vendor partner CIO advisory councils. Notably, Eileen is the founder of PVH's Women's Business Resource Group, Upward, which stands for Uniting Professional Women, Advancing Relationships and Development. The goal of this group is to ensure alignment between PVH's business and values. It is for these reasons that you, Eileen, embody the spirit of this award. Eileen, on behalf of our alma mater, PACE, I am pleased to present you with the 2020 Award for Innovation in Retail Technology.
Vipul, thank you very much. I am humbled, honored, and quite honestly, very emotional about receiving this wonderful award from the university. Many of the statistics that you saw on the screen are a story of my life. I am the first generation in my family to get a 4-year college degree. Obviously, as a female, many people back in the day said that maybe technology wasn't the right career choice for a woman, and maybe I should think about being a teacher. They also had indicated that maybe it really wasn't something that you should stick to, especially if you wanted to ultimately be a wife and a mother. I'm so glad that I had so many great women role models that told me that that wasn't true. You should go after your dreams, and as long as you work hard, you will go through and be successful. And that I really have to thank my parents, who hopefully are very proud, looking down on me today, because they taught me the value of a strong work ethic, the partnership, the leadership, the hard work that's needed as you start to go through your college career. And then you start to look at where you want to ultimately go. And hopefully, as you start your professional career, look at how you can begin to make a difference, whether that difference is in your coworkers, is as a manager, as a leader, and how you can use all of the talents and skills that you've gotten the opportunity to receive at Pace University and move that forward. The Seidenberg School and I share an anniversary. The year I graduated is the year that it was formed. You know, I chose to go to Pace, and I went to Pace's White Plains campus because it was known as a great university, very strong in the business field, but also for the excellent reputation of the faculty, the small class sizes, and the community that Pace offered. Little did I know that many years later, I would be part of that community, that it is excellent to give back, and that it really does mean quite a bit to me in terms of how it has shaped my career. You know, Jonathan and Vipul were very nice in terms of giving background on your career. But I would say that my career is really an example of seeing what is out there, looking at how you can make a difference. not only in the company that you work for, but also in the community that you work for. So if anybody knows anything about PVH, we're a company that truly believes in giving back. We believe in our core values. And those really come out as some of those guiding principles that I operate today. But it's also those same operating principles and core values that I see that Pace University operates in really wanting to do the best for their students, really being able to look at making inroads. And for a college that became the university, that became the powerhouse that it is today, really goes to that continuous, in IT tech speak, that agile, iterative university that is growing and learning and always looking to see how they can make a difference in their students' lives. So I really do appreciate it. I've had the opportunity to speak to some of the students in the fall, and really do appreciate the recognition. As I said, I'm very humbled, and I really look forward to continuing the partnership with PACE and hopefully looking towards helping some of our new up-and-coming graduates in helping them to decide their career paths and what would be in their future. So thank you very, very much for this honor.
Eileen, thank you. And thank you for sharing that touching message. And as I look through the members of our community here on Zoom, I see young alums, and I see some alums who've been into their careers for a longer time, and I see our industry sponsors, and I see these wonderful current students, and I see our faculty. And when I think about the fact that you, Eileen, and Vipul are alumni of this wonderful program, of this school that Sue Merritt founded in 1983, I know that these wonderful faculty have really accomplished something great. And thank you for embodying that. And thank you for coming back to us today to share that. And now that we've got you here, we're not going to let you go just yet. And we have an opportunity, all of us, to learn a little bit more about your career journey and your insights in the field. I've said to Eileen that she has a book, if not several books in her about technology management. And so we're going to have a student-driven discussion this afternoon. Just a couple of rules of the road. Keep your microphones muted, and in the last part of our time together, you will have a chance to ask questions directly. You can put them in the chat bar. We do like to have our folks on camera, if you're comfortable with that, and making it as interactive as possible so you can speak directly to Eileen. So as I said, this is going to be a student-driven conversation. I want to introduce our co-moderators. They are, like Eileen a few years ago, brilliant young women, and I believe are, like all of us, are inspired by Eileen's example and are going to be the next generation of technology leaders out in the field. So I have the honor and privilege of introducing to you Brianna Adkins and Angela Bonsall, both of whom are scheduled to graduate in May. And Brianna, if you'd be kind enough to introduce yourself to our community.
Hi, I'm Brianna, and I am a senior majoring in communication studies, and I'm from Charleston, Maine.
That's right. So that makes you an international student in a way. And Angela, our Madam President, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Angela. I am a senior as well and majoring in computer science. I'm currently in Staten Island, New York.
Wonderful. So Brianna and Angela, the floor is yours. And so is Eileen.
Thank you. First off, Eileen, I think Angela and I both just want to say congratulations on your recognition for innovation in retail technology. Your remarks were incredibly inspiring and heartwarming, and it's just lovely to see what a woman in tech can do. I think our first question of the night is, just so we can better understand the scale and impact of this field, could you explain what retail technology is?
Sure. So hopefully everybody, if you're wondering who PVH is one of the world's largest apparel companies that owns the brands of Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. And one of the things that from a technology point of view, which is very interesting, is probably 15 years ago, when you looked at retail technology, it was all about the store. It was, the register system. It may be some of the purchase order management or receiving goods. In the digital age, that's completely changed. So when you look at retail technology today, it starts with, doing 3D design and being able to use visual tools to be able to create assortments. It's about all of those digital images and interactive kiosks that are in stores, whether it's for lookup or price checkup. But the other thing that you realize now, and especially in 2021 with COVID, as it really has exploded in the e-com space. So hopefully everybody is out there and you're going to get ready to brace the spring and go shopping. But you now see that retail technology is about all the different ways that a consumer responds to a brand, whether it's through marketing messages, whether it's getting to that consumer insight of what drives a consumer to have brand loyalty. It is in the e-com space of being able to create digital assets or video clips that allow people to hear about product. So it's gone so broad in anything that you could think of, whether you're in Best Buy and you want to understand a bit more about a solution and you're on their site and it gives you a clip of a product image. It is that marketing stack of how you look at social media and respond to that information to be able to allow you to make better product decisions. So when you look at retail technology, just think of anything that you touch is now digitized, and any function that's done in a retail company is all empowered by technology.
And you're next, Angela.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, that was it's good to know what exactly retail technology entails for us. As we do know, you have a deep bench of decades of experience and leadership in the consumer and retail technology space. You advanced your career and led at Macy's and other companies such as Pitry Retail and Barnes and Noble. We just want to know what inspired you to pursue these sectors in particular versus other fields where technology is prolific?
I would say that you always want to do something that you love. So one, I love technology, also love shopping. So when you can relate to the field, it allows you to unlock your passion. And when you unlock your passion, it starts to look at how you can make a difference, whether it is simplifying a process or looking at, as a consumer, how I would want to shop. Am I able to actually build that strategy? And then from that strategy, deliver a solution set that would make a difference in terms of how the business is able to unlock and empower, the business goals that they're trying to achieve. So I would say that when you start to look at an area or a discipline that you're looking at, or an industry, you really want to be able to connect to that industry. And I would say probably if it wasn't retail that I would probably be in, the other thing is, and I know I grew up in the Bronx, but I'd probably want to work for in the technology area of the Mets. So yes, I will say publicly that, yes, going to Queens, but being that, so I'd say in the sports fields, because again, you really can understand. And when you have that passion, it allows you to take your career and be able to unlock a lot of thought process and you figure out how you could take something you love, combine the two, and build a very impactful strategy.
I really love how your discussion of unlocking your passion is really at the forefront of your journey. And speaking of passion and inspiration and what led you to where you are now, let's go back to your time as a college student and what shaped your career. Can you tell us a little bit about why you chose PACE and what motivated you to pursue a STEM degree in particular?
So as I said, I was the first generation of my family to go to a four-year college. And with that, my father initially gave me a very short radius of where I could go from my home, and started to look at what the opportunities were, and immediately looked at PACE, and looked at PACE in the White Plains campus. Also started to look at, I'm a very logical thinker. I like to like puzzles. I like figuring things out. And at that point, you started to hear this, about computers and how they were working. And it was something that really intrigued me. So loved math, loved science, figuring out how would I be able to actually use that, and what were those career majors that you could then begin to study. And with that, as I was doing my research, you realized how strong the program was at PACE. It was in the radius. The one thing that I think my dad didn't think of was the fact that when I visited White Plains, that I could also convince my mother that maybe I could also live on campus. So that got the best of both worlds, getting that environment in the university as well as my major. Many, as I said earlier in my remarks, many people didn't think that technology was the right space for a woman. And basically, based on some of the current statistics, and very happy to see PACE statistics, unfortunately, many women start in the technology space, but tend not to stick with it. So for all of the women who are out there, who are PACE students now, stick with it. It is a great career. You will be able to make that difference and be able to unlock a lot of the analytical side, the creative side, because you realize with technology, you have to be creative. You are designing solutions. So that creative side, and it turned out better than I could ever possibly imagine. Jonathan mentioned, Dr. Susan Merritt. She was my very first class at PACE. It was somebody who really could explain what she saw and her vision for what computers could do. And her passion drove to the establishment of this phenomenal college. And I think when I also looked at it, I also wanted to be part of a community. You really wanted to feel that you had the support, that you were also getting exposed to other things that, again, basically helped to form me as a leader. Whether it was being in student government or being an RA, it actually allowed me to also have some other leadership experience outside of the academics pieces of my college experience.
I definitely agree with choosing PACE because of the word community. It's also why I chose PACE as well. Yeah, and I think it's very important, especially as a STEM degree as well. It's important to have that support. Yeah. So throughout your magnificent career, of course, you advancing in various IT and leadership positions, succeeding to the top technology role at several companies. Um, we just want to know what key takeaways can our students and other professionals here apply as they seek and take on bigger roles in their careers.
Yeah, I think if I look back and somebody would have said to me in 1983 when I graduated from PACE, would you see yourself as a global CIO? I'm not even sure I really knew. First of all, I don't even know whether the CIO title actually existed really as widespread as that. But I don't think I would have said, yes, that is definitely my goal. What I would recommend is, where is it that you want to be, in 5 years? And then how are you going to get to that 5-year mark? Some of it is from opportunities that are given to you, but more of them are coming from opportunities that you make yourself. And then at that 5-year mark, where is it that you want to be 10 years out from your career? And I think that's one of the things that I pursued in terms of, when I first was a back in the day, now we may call it an engineer, but a programmer or a developer, then I realized that I really did want to actually be more of a systems analyst. And then I wanted to be a manager leading the projects and doing the design. And with that, as you naturally strove to take on that additional responsibility, then you also have to deliver. So it's one thing to ask for the responsibility, it's the next thing to understand and make sure that you deliver it. So I think that was one. The other thing that I found was I actually enjoyed, leading and, not necessarily having the attention on me, but on leading projects and helping to develop other team members and their skills. So I think gradually you start to build that, arsenal of tools in your toolbox that allows you to naturally continue to move forward. I would say the one other piece of advice that I would give you is you won't have it all figured out and you won't have all the answers. But if you're not willing to take the opportunity and the chance, you're never going to move forward. So I would go through and say, if you believe in the areas that you're strong in, continue those. If you look at the areas that you're weak or you need support in, figure out how to ask for help and develop those. And then really have the confidence to help yourself move forward in your career. But you should always have that North Star of where you would like to go, and then put together your plan of how you would get there.
Thank you so much. That was really eye-opening and inspiring. As one of the few women occupying leadership roles, of course, in this field, did you feel your gender and background impacted your career path and your approach to reaching your goals?
I would say that 10 or 15 years ago, I would have said no. I would think that I wanted, that I achieved what I needed to do. My father always told us, you work really hard, people will see it and acknowledge it. But looking back now, realizing many times I was the only woman in the room. And you look at that now and say, was that a hindrance or a help? I don't think I've ever really thought about it until the last 5 years, as you start to figure out how do you help other women succeed and move forward. As I said, I'm blessed to have 3 amazing children. And I wanted to have it all. I wanted to have the career, I wanted to have the family. And the only way that I was able to do it is I picked an amazing partner. My husband supports me. So when you look at that support system that you have, how did you do that? Because I did want to be able to be a leader. I wanted to be able to be a great wife and mother. And I have to say, sometimes I didn't do it all well. You know, I made mistakes along the way, but when you start to look at it, I also had to make sure that in my career, I brought myself to the table. You know, they always say, it's a boys' club, or you wanted a seat at the table. I wanted the seat at the table, but I didn't want to be part of the boys' club. I wanted to be myself at the table. And I think that's the other thing. So you look forward now when we start to talk about inclusion and diversity, and you started to realize that, and Jonathan asked me this a couple years ago when we first started to get to know each other. I never really thought it was unique. I never really thought of the fact of my role as a female, because I was looking at myself as a professional who was just trying to move their career forward. Now I realize that I have the opportunity to help, empower, break down some of those walls and barriers, and be very proud of the fact of what I've accomplished as a woman in the field, and hope that since people are still seeing that it is a bit of a large step for people to take, how do I help other women to understand that this is all within their reach and that they can have that happen? I've also been lucky at the companies that I've chosen to work for that actually do value all associates. So when you see you want to make sure as you pick those companies that you begin to build your career on, you really want to make sure that they do, appreciate and allow you to bring yourself, your full self to work. And that you are looking at now, there's much more transparency in terms of male, female, what the roles are, leadership, whether it's, what is the percentage of top executives as women or minorities. And you really want to be able to go to a company that really is going to allow you to move forward. And I think that, one of the things, and I'm very proud of the fact of working for PVH, you actually see that's part of their core values and mission. So I'd say long answer to your question, Angela, but probably is unique to certain people. To me, it was just how I was wired, of how I wanted to move my career forward, and never used it as an excuse. But now that I'm aware of it, I actually want to empower so many more people to feel comfortable that they're able to go on that journey.
I love the way that you discussed how you can be yourself at the table. You don't want to just join it. You want to be yourself at that table and have the chance to be authentic. And it's really great that there are companies like PVH where that's being allowed to happen now, especially for women leading in tech. And now just to go to PVH for a little bit, can you tell us how PVH is differentiating itself from its peers and maintaining its leadership standing in fashion and lifestyle sectors particularly?
Yeah, so I would say that as a company that owns multiple brands, you always want to make sure that each brand has its own unique DNA. But more importantly, it also connects to the consumer. So when I look at the direction our brands are going in, they're focused on sustainability. They're focused on making sure that as you build products, it's done in an ethical way. And when we communicate out to our consumer base, that's very important to them. It's very important that as a company, they stand up for and invest in workers' rights. We recently, probably 4 or 5 years ago, partnered with a vendor to open up a new manufacturing facility in Ethiopia. So went in and, put your money where your mouth is and actually invested in building out a community. So it's not just about, the profit. It really is about being that good corporate citizen. It is about going in and looking at all of the right things to do. And that's also part of our core values. So when you look at our company versus other fashion apparel companies, I always say we're a company that moves forward with a very strong conscience. And we want to make sure that that also is representative in our product, in the spokespeople that we have represent the product, and not necessarily just always go for the quick hit, but actually be able to make sure that it's a company with a conscience. And not to say others aren't, but I do think that does separate us from a lot of our competitors.
Yeah, the emphasis on sustainability and having ethics and just being a conscious corporate citizen is so important. Can you maybe share some of the projects or initiative that your team is undertaking that you're particularly excited about, maybe within this idea of the conscious citizen, that make a big impact for PVH's operations or clients?
Yeah, so I would say one of the projects that our product team are working on is really going ahead and digitizing the enterprise. And when you say, what does that mean? It means starting with design and being able to do that digitally so that, one, you can allow the creative team to really be creative, but you're also eliminating waste because you're not creating multiple samples. It's a 3D image. You can go through and take that and obviously send that technical, tech pack to a vendor. They're able to go through from a speed perspective and be able to turn that around. But also then from an insights perspective, one of the key areas that we had a visioning session within the TPG team of where did we see we wanted to move some of these things, and by 2025, where did we think from a technology perspective, how did we have to build that strategy to basically unlock some of this? And we then took consumer insights, and how do you take that consumer insights and feed that back into the product so that we're continually learning and we're listening to what our consumer says. So I think that's one of the things that's very, very important. And with that, we're building a technology platform that allows that to happen. It allows us to be able to design, assort, and build digitally. It allows us to be able to take those insights and eventually have that feed back into the product design so that you can stand that up. And doing that, we're probably one of the first companies to have that complete digital ecosystem. So that's one example of the team saw what the opportunity was. They came, they pitched it. We started to look at the strategies, how technology could shorten the supply chain, how they could actually go through and eliminate waste. And at the same time, be very exciting to actually give the design team the ability to create things in a very digital and quick way. We actually have won awards for this project because it does show how we're leading in this space. So that's one of, I'm sure if any of the teams listening, that's just one of many, 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 many things that we're doing. But Brianna asked for one, so I gave her one.
It's really exciting to hear. As a seasoned global IT leader, what is your approach to inspiring and practicing innovation individually and among your team?
The one thing that I would say is I realize I do not have all the answers. And the first thing that you do is you get some very creative and talented people and explain to them either a problem that you want solved or a vision, or even challenge them to create the vision of where we need to go. So as I mentioned earlier, the actual technical doing is the easier piece. Understanding vision and building out a strategy so that you can really have people see that strategy and also want to execute that strategy is a little bit different. Also, what are all of the changing and new technologies that are coming in, and how do they play a role in what we need to do? And it has to have a purpose, because there's so much new technology. Every day something new comes out. How do you very quickly, and people will say, go and, you want to learn and, test and fail. I always say you always want to learn. So you want to try new innovation. You want to learn from that innovation. It may not have gone well, but as a result of this, you will learn. But you also want to make sure that the innovation that you're looking at is going to drive business value or business purpose. So I always say technology for the sake of technology, people aren't going to adopt. They might like it for the short term, but they're really not going to adopt it. So when you look at innovation, you want to look at what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and how could this new technology or a new innovative way to do something or a new business process is really going to then meet those business needs and allow you to move forward. So when we look at innovation in that way, we also want to look at, is there white space that we have that we want to be able to look at innovation and bring it in so that we can also use it as a learning exercise.
Yeah, speaking of future opportunities within new tech and challenges in the field of retail technology, in the fashion space in particular, what new technologies are emerging to drive creativity, innovation, and revenue generation?
I think as a result of COVID, live streaming has definitely been a technology that we've started to embrace so that people can have that feeling of a showroom, a fashion show, a runway, and really use that technology to also have a bit of that social community of a shopping experience. So I think that's definitely one that is driving how we operate differently. It's not just about a static image any longer. You really want to use that technology to show up and bring the product to life. I would say the other thing is also in brand messaging. What is it that we want our brands to do? So when you look at the ability to give product information, or really look at, people when they want to buy apparel, they want to understand not only is what the product is made of, so that, is it of the right sustainable fabric, the feel, the flow. You have to be able to give them and use technology so that they almost feel like they're touching it, although you know that they're not. So making sure that whether it's with 3D design and rendering, there is, the fluidness of a fabric, are all those things that from an apparel perspective, we need to make sure that we bring to life in a digital space.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of the pandemic, actually, we wanted to know which offerings and products at PBH have been most popular during.
I would say, just like everybody else, casual wear. Believe it or not, the amount of Calvin Klein underwear that has been sold in the last year is it is record breaking. Also, anything that is of comfort, so lounge. Now it's sort of, you're also looking at it, people want to be a little bit neater, but some great joggers, sweatpants, looking at casual shirts. What hasn't sold is, dress shirts and ties and a little bit of the dress wear. But now, hopefully, we're watching as the vaccines are coming out, as various states and countries are lifting restrictions. People are now starting to look at what it would be like being out in the public again, maybe going to family events and weddings. So we're actually starting to see a shift from really casual, stay at home, to, neat, casual, more outfits, to actually also going back in, and people are looking forward to, I think, celebrating a little bit. So we are starting to see some movement more in the dress category now.
Yes, since also it's hiring season soon, or is, what advice can you give our students and professionals in transition who are facing a lot of uncertainty and instability on many fronts? What are the top skills you're looking for when you're hiring?
Yeah, I would say that for everybody who is graduating now, the work environment that you're going to go into is going to be very, very different. If you're in the tri-state area, you probably will start your job virtually. We have people for the last, we've been working remote for the last 14 months. And we have brand new people who have never met their teammates in person. So, that's something that you're going to have to figure out as you start your new job. How do you start to build and get to the culture of the company while you may be sitting in your living room or your bedroom trying to manage and learn your new responsibility? I would say, as you start to look for jobs, you really want to think about going out. As I said, you want to have that 5-year vision, but what is the company that you want? What are the core important things for the company that you want to join? Because you figure you're going to join, the probability that you'll be with that company for the rest of your life is probably slim, but it is going to be the first experience that you have in that professional world. So you want to make sure that it is a company that's going to give you some growth opportunity. It is a company that also believes in education for, whether it's in professional development or leadership. And you also want to make sure that the job that you're taking is realistic in terms of what somebody just graduating from college should be. So sometimes you may actually have to do support work. You may have to you can't create the new program. You may be doing maintenance on a program, but all of that is going to give you great experience for how you want to be able, what you want to focus on. So, everybody believes that I'm going to get there, I'm going to make a great deal of money right off the bat. I think you want to make sure that it's the area that you're interested in. It's the company that you can see yourself being at for a couple of years, and look at how do you get your foot in the door in the area that you want, and then be able to take on the responsibilities and prove, and then be able to continue to move forward. Because I think if you're looking at somebody who has, when part of the question, Angela, is I'm looking at somebody, do they have drive? Are they able to actually have a conversation? And when you begin to speak to them, they could at least say, this is my experience. When you ask them, what areas did you like in as part of your education? Where do you see yourself? What disciplines you want to be able to also have that conversation, because if they have the right mindset, that coming from PACE, you definitely have the right education. You want to then be able to say, how can that associate be able to work in our environment and be able to adapt, as well as be willing to take on challenges? So I think if you show that you have that mindset and that you're open to the opportunities, you'll be able to convince a hiring manager to give you a shot.
Wow, what fabulous advice, Eileen. And Angela and Brianna, you are absolutely amazing. What a fantastic job. And thank you so much for leading this conversation. And we have an opportunity now for members of our community here to ask some questions. And as I mentioned, if you have a question you'd like to ask, please put it in the chat bar. We'll try to get to it. We've got quite a lineup here. And the first question goes to Kristen Olson, who is the North America General Manager at Browseware, one of the visionary sponsors of SIA. And Kristen, we're so grateful to you for being here this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and congratulations, Eileen. Super exciting to see you get this award. As you mentioned, PVH is a global leader in the apparel industry for advancing sustainable fashion, especially now with the pandemic and the opportunities it creates to shape a new normal for companies and consumers. As you know, Browseware is proud to partner with PVH and fellow fashion companies in 3D powered design to operate more efficiently and sustainably. Can you talk a little bit more about the ways that technology is enabling PVH to minimize its environmental footprint?
Yeah. So, Kristen, thank you very much. And when I was talking about some of the work that we're doing with 3D design, it is with Kristen and the Browseware company that have been great partners in actually co-creating a lot of the solutions that are coming to market. From a environmental perspective, we have a corporate responsibility team that focuses on the ethical way of manufacturing. Recently, I would say recently, it's probably 5 years ago, started to look at water surveys in terms of how much water it took to actually wash fabric, and started to look at creating different fabric treatments to be able to minimize the amount of water that was needed to make a dress shirt. When you start to look at ethical disposal of dyes, and when you looking at fabric. So there is a whole host of things that the company is doing so that from a corporate responsibility perspective, we have some initiatives going on that technology is helping with in terms of solutions for sustainability, and how we can go through and look at where from product creation all the way to coming to market, can we trace where the source of the fabric is, the way, not only from a manufacturing, but from a labor perspective, how that fabric was made, to make sure that we're monitoring it going forward. And this is an area where I would say 2 to 3 years ago, it was really more a business area. Technology wasn't as involved, but between, RFID and fabric and literally in threads, how we're able to go through and put even just a sensor on a product that doesn't know about the the person who bought it, but you start to look at the amount of time that it may have been washed to see if it has held up as well as you expect. Those are the kind of things that we're looking at to be able to make sure that not only is there quality in product, but to your point, that from an environment perspective, we're actually developing product. And even if you want to just go through and then be able to take it apart and be able to use it for redesign, that it actually, basically is positive in the environment. We're also looking at how do you use things like apple cores to create some, the tread on sneakers. So starting to look at other things from that are disposable to be able to, how do you use those to actually now become part of, fabric and materials that come into building the product.
Interesting. And what a fabulous question, Kristen. Come back and see us. We'd love to talk to you about what you're doing as well. And the next question is for Kenny Small. Kenny's Vice President, U.S. Enterprise at Qualitest, another wonderful supporter of SIA. Kenny, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jonathan. And firstly, congrats, Eileen. This is great news, and it's great to listen to you speak there. It's really engaging. I also want to thank you for your leadership and partnership working with us. We often use the relationship with PVH as a blueprint at Qualitest of how to truly collaborate with you and your team, and Gio in particular. I actually want to hand over to Alexis, who's a woman in my organization who inspires me, to ask you a question about some of the things you've spoken about today. So Alexis, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks for handing it over. And again, thank you, Eileen, for our continued partnership. And this has been a really amazing event to get to listen in on. So my question for you is, very few women are able to balance family, marriage, an incredible career. I mean, you're a CIO, that's amazing, and having a life. I know that you mentioned having a great partner, but what else would you say? I've heard from other working mothers, and as a new mom, I have a 3-month-old, there is this guilt that we feel, guilt for not being able to do it all. How do you do it, and what would you tell us?
I would say that the first thing I would tell you is you need to cut yourself some slack. You're not going to be able to do it all, but you do all the important things. So, a lesson learned from where I live, most of the other women or mothers were either stay-at-home moms, or if they had if they worked, it was a job, not a career. So I can remember being on maternity leave and having a after-school play date, which never happened during the week because I was always working. And someone came and asked me, they dropped their child off. We were having a conversation. And they said, oh, well, where do you work? And I said, Barnes and Noble. And they're like, oh, well, in Poughkeepsie, which is a town near us. And I was like, no, in New York City. And they were like, well, why don't you just work in the bookstore? Like, truly had no appreciation for what I did. And I jokingly said, oh, I couldn't get a job there. So I'm the CIO in the city. And while I was on maternity leave, I have 3 children. There was an event at the school. So, I went, and I was one of the few moms who was there. And I'm like, where are all these other moms? Well, they may have a second child and they didn't want to take the child out, or they may have had it. So I had this vision that all these stay-at-home moms were in school all the time, baking cookies and being these perfect mothers, and found out that no, that wasn't necessarily true. And then I also realized that he started to put on the calendar those things that were important. So when they were important, the same way you'd have a business meeting, you were like, you know what, this afternoon is this event at school, I'm going to be there. But also when you look at the mother guilts, I say I have 3 adult children, so they all still like me. So I must have done something right. But I think the other thing, as they got older, I actually talked to them a bit about what I was doing. And also they knew that if I could be there, I would be, but it wasn't always possible. But if I missed the 15-minute Halloween parade, that night I talked to them about it. I said, oh, you had your costume, whatever, and you have to balance. But I think the biggest thing that I can tell you, Alexis, is you're not going to get it all right. You know what? It's okay. The same way from a career perspective, you want to just make sure that, you also have to make time for yourself, which in the beginning I didn't necessarily do, because it's okay to be selfish and make some time for yourself. And if you believe you're doing the right thing, that's all that matters. Don't also, the other advice is don't listen to everybody else. It's between you and your partner. It's not between anybody else, because everybody will give you advice. And again, you just have to feel like you're doing the best you can. And when you need it, ask for help. I always say asking for help is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness, because you want to make sure that when you need help, you're going and you're getting that help that you need.
Wow, very powerful answer, Eileen, and a lot to think about as a father who's maybe taken too much advantage of a strong wife. And our next question is from Rich McDonald from High Point Solutions, and High Point is a supporter sponsor of SIA. And Rich, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just had to unmute myself. Hi, Eileen. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just kind of was just curious as to what you see as the, the office of the future. I'm running into a lot of different customers, or we are as High Point, and just trying to understand like what they see as, office space in the future, what that's going to look like. Kind of curious what your thoughts are on that.
I think, it's a great question, because we're going through that now. We as a company in North America have said everybody is working remote at least until after Labor Day. In our Asia offices, we have people back in, and they may alternate 1 week in, 1 week out. And our Europe office is now, they're in lockdowns. So everybody's at a different phase. I think the one thing that's really going to drive this is technology has allowed us all to be very productive remotely. So when you look at how, getting the job done, you're able to get the job done remotely. The difference being is people miss the camaraderie with colleagues. You miss that easy conversation that you could pop by somebody's desk and ask a question. So as we start to look at it and look at that, sort of what we're calling that hybrid model, is it really more of, yes, you have an office space, but is it more hoteling? Is your primary office your home office, and you are coming into the office maybe 2 days a week, and it's more for brainstorming or for those things that you couldn't do via video, or just the human interaction of getting a team together? I don't ever see us being back in the office 5 days a week. And as a result of that, I think you're going to start to see that there isn't as much office space that's needed, because I'm not sure people will have dedicated workspaces any longer. I think it will go more towards an open desk concept where people are coming into. But we're also, one of the benefits of saying we're not going to go back till September is we're learning from a lot of the companies that are out there who've come back in. And then people still are, for the next, I would say 12 to 24 months, people still are going to be a little bit anxious with, COVID and a new strain and an outbreak and all. And we're not, for PVH, we're not going to rush people back to the office. We're really going to make sure that our associates feel comfortable. But I do think that we'll be remote more often than we will be in the office going forward.
Thank you.
A lot of juggling and a fabulous question. And another fabulous question has come in from Kevin McGovern. Kevin, if you're here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dean Hill. Eileen, congratulations again.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for you. And I'm just going to scroll back to where I wrote it so I don't forget exactly how I set it up. So GDPR and CCPA, the data privacy pronouncements from the EC and from great state of California. They're starting to have not only commerce, but the general public look at data differently and evaluate whether they have personal rights over the data that companies take from them. And I think most people would honestly say they don't even realize how much data they give away freely in their daily correspondence and communications, especially in retail. I'm sure this is a challenge for you as an industry. Where do you see that falling? As a challenge on the spectrum, you are visionary as an individual and a professional, and your company has been very caring and thoughtful about how they've treated their customers and society as a whole. How are you looking at data privacy as you move forward in your strategic plans? And before you answer, let's go Mets.
Yay, thank you, Kevin. That's a great question, because even within the company, you have the marketers and the consumer insights teams that want to know everything about a consumer. And then you have the legal team who is like, absolutely not, you can't have any of that. So the approach that we've taken, now, obviously we've followed all the guidelines for CCPA, and you realize the way California goes, if you set your standards up there, then you're probably good for every other state in the US. And with GDPR, we've actually gone through and asked the consumer to opt in or opt out, and what information. So the only information that we keep on a consumer is information that they've allowed us to take. So for example, if we don't need that information to either complete a consumer sale, or to be able to, if they're from a loyalty perspective, look at transactions to give them points, we don't keep it, because we don't want to be in that, just even if somebody inadvertently shared data that they shouldn't. We also are looking at data more from a trend. And so we try to anonymize the data as much as possible, because it's the trend that means it to us. It doesn't necessarily mean so much about what Eileen Mahoney did, but if we're looking at it as, okay, a woman who purchased this, and this is the age group, because we're looking at it more for a trend and how to go through and look at where the product should go or where it didn't go, because we also look at returns, and we're looking at why are people returning product, and it wasn't a size. So I do think that it's and you're right, the amount of data that people are willing to share, I'm amazed at. A couple of years ago, we had a #MyCalvin promotion, and people were just taking pictures and sending them in their underwear. I was, in one respect, as a company person, I was like, wow, the marketing campaign is going great. The other part of me is like, oh my God, like, why would you send pictures in your underwear? But they do. So I think it's the right balance of, for us, we want it to be directional. We really don't want to actually get into any privacy issues with the company. And even if, as I said, even if the business teams did, the legal team doesn't. We have a very strong data privacy practice within PVH. And that is a lens of a lot of conversations that go on, especially when it comes to not only capturing consumer data, but even from our wholesale partners, what data we will go through and get from there. And it's really more along style and product, because it is that slippery slope. And we even went out as far on our websites as to say to our consumers that we want them to trust that we will always do the right thing with their data, and that we won't go through, we will never sell it, and we will only use it for actually purposes of either working with them on their account or for information, but it really is. The other thing is that they have a right to ask, especially now with GDPR and CCPA, to say, what systems do you have our data in?
How you're
And,
using it, right?
yeah, a year ago, January, when CCPA went in, so we had to develop a whole technology stack that allowed us to be able to clearly tell a consumer what data we had with them. And if they've asked us, unless it is actually, transactional in terms of a payment they've made, we will remove all of their transaction history if they've asked, just to make sure that, consumer feels comfortable as how they're doing business with PVH.
And that's, Eileen, that's such a thoughtful and smart strategy to take the personally identifiable information, the PII, which is really what your lawyers will tell you, gets you into trouble. And that's really what the GDPR and CCPA are looking for, right? They're looking for anything that's personally identifiable that might be misused by you as a commercial entity. And if you've basically erased that and converted it into something anonymous, it's consumer A, consumer B, consumer C, and you're just interested in how the consumers in certain demographics are behaving and what their buying patterns are and their preferences, then you've basically settled it for yourself and significantly reduced any exposure you have as holding the information, because with that information comes a great responsibility, but you've basically negated that completely.
Yeah, and then I think just even in general, as we're moving forward, you always say the more data you have, the more possibility of trouble you can get into. But more data isn't necessarily of value. It is, do we have the right data that's allowing us to make the right business decisions that we need? So when we're also even looking at data history, and especially in some of the questions that Brianna and Angela asked earlier, how a consumer shopped 3 years ago is really historical. It is of no value because no one is behaving that way today. So sometimes having too much history gives you a false sense of comfort versus what really has happened in the last 18 months and then the last 12 months. And then also using that data for when stores reopened. Did consumers go out to stores to shop, or are they still buying online? What's their hesitancy? So we've also even started to look at, do we have the right amount of data and the right data that's helping drive business decisions? Because sometimes it will act too much data is actually causing missed decisions to be made or potentially
creates
be
blind
made.
spots.
Yeah.
Thank
What
you
a
so much.
fabulous question, Kevin. Thank you. An amazing answer. And I think we could just focus on this for 2 hours and not run out of material. Next question comes from one of our fabulous advisory board members. And I want to just take a moment to thank Denise Daniels from the @Company, joining us from Silicon Valley this afternoon, wonderful supporter of the Seidenberg School, and some of our fabulous young alums, including Ava and Olga and Alberto and Marcelo. We're so glad you're with us today. But Olga, you had a fabulous question, and I want to hear the answer, so you get to ask it.
Thanks, Jonathan. And congratulations, Eileen. Definitely well-deserved award. I'm in the space too. I work in retail space. I'm curious to hear, what do you think is the biggest threat or risks to the retail industry, let's say in the next 5 years?
One is that retail doesn't shift enough to how the consumer wants to shop. You will have a P&L and people be like, well, I run stores, so I want people to be in our stores, or I run e-com, so everybody needs to shop digitally. And I think listening to the consumer and how the consumer wants to shop or the consumer wants to engage with the brand is going to be most important. because you realize there are times where you're going to want to sit on your couch and go online and order. And then there is times where you want to go to a store. So we'll refer to it as brick and mortar. And now it has to be more of an experience. It just can't assume that you build it, they'll come. You really have to be able to have that experience so that a consumer feels valued, whether they're in a store, they're online, or they're with one of our wholesale partners. And I think if we don't shift to being very consumer focused first, and we just continue to operate the way retail has been, you run the risk of losing that consumer, because there's so many startup companies that are trying to go after the same consumer base, and you have to show that you're different. You have to have core values that you follow, but you also have to make, whether it's your customer service or that consumer experience, it really has to be top notch, because if it's not, there's so many other opportunities for share of wallet that your brands will miss out.
Amazing, thank you.
Sorry, I was having technical issues there for a second. Fabulous question, Olga. And Jackie Lee Martinez, delighted that you are here with us and you have the floor.
Thank you, Dean Hill. And firstly, I'd like to say that I'm so happy to see you again, Eileen, and I do want to congratulate you on this award, and that I really do admire you and all the work that you have done for PVH. And now on to my question, which is, you have already accomplished so much in your career and at PVH. So looking forward, what goals do you hope to achieve in 2021 and in the long term before you retire?
I would say there's a couple specific things that within the company from a technology space, I want to see, built and landed. So I could walk away saying that some of our enterprise systems are truly global, and they really are not only implemented, but really have transformed how we operate. So I would say that from the CIO role, that's some of it. I would say that from a leadership role, it is giving a lot of my team the opportunity to shine and really help them build out their careers and be able to give them opportunities so that, they're all fighting for the role that I have, and that all of them are very successful. And I would say the third is, and it goes to a theme that we've had during the day, is looking at, Jackie, folks like you, like Angela, how can I, in my position, and realize that, how can I help other women go through and really be able to not only enter the technology market, but really keep it as a career and not leave after 5 or 10 years. And to folks like, Alexis, who asked the question, how can you show that there's a support out there for people who are, career-minded, working mothers, but even just working parents? Because if there's a dad out there, Jonathan said it, if there's a dad on the phone who thinks that their kid doesn't want them showing up in an event, you're kidding yourself. So how do you be able to figure out how to integrate, your work and your life? People say balance, I say integrate, because it's important that those are. So if I'm able to help people along the way and also get that operating model fully in place in PVH, so it lives on after I retire, I feel very, very good hanging up my my laptop.
Great answer, thank you.
And we're on the verge of running a little over, Eileen. I hope your schedule can permit a couple more questions. Can it?
Sure.
Our cup runneth over. We could be here for hours, but Next question is from our own Simone Gonzalez.
Thank you, Dean Hill. I just want to thank you, Eileen, for all the work you've done, especially for women. And my question to you is kind of a long one. As one of PVH's corporate officers, can you share what kind of culture and mindset that PVH leadership seeks to nurture, and specifically what kinds of accomplishments and traits tend to be most valued at PVH? Congratulations. Thanks again.
So I would say that as a corporate officer, you have a responsibility for the brands, but you also have a responsibility for the discipline that you lead. And you also want to make sure that you're leading in a way that's inclusive, that you're leading in a way that is empowering people to bring forth ideas and to exceed. And you also have to realize that your responsibility isn't just to the technology space, but it is to the complete company. So you also have to learn quite a bit about all of the areas of the company so that you can make sure that you are focused on that. So I think that's important. And when you look at from a leadership perspective, those values have to come through. You also have to be willing to listen and to understand the trends that are happening. And even if that wasn't your original plan, how do you shift to make sure that you're responding to what's needed? And I think that's another piece that as a corporate officer, I'd always love to say that they're going to spend all the money on technology, but it might not be the year for technology. So you have to be able to balance that out with being a corporate officer, but also a domain leader, and how you also continue to show that you're adding value, obviously, to our shareholders and to our board. We're a public company. We have to make sure that, as we meet with the board, that they believe that the approach that we're taking aligns to the company's mission and vision, and then how we're actually going to deliver it and then be accountable. So if we've committed it, how do we go through and make sure that we've put together reasonable plans to ensure that it happens?
That's great. And Iris Nagayan. Hi.
Thank you, Dean Hill, and thank you for being here with us. Congratulations on receiving the award. It's really empowering to listen to your insights as the leader in STEM field. With respect to advancing diversity and inclusion in the STEM fields, have you found there to be issues or challenges that are unique or more pervasive in the retail technology in particular?
I think, as we said, there are not as many women as I would like. I think that when it comes to when you look at diversity, also we have a good, I would say, a good complement and mix of Asian men. We have a good complement of white men. Probably don't have as many Black and don't have as many Latinos that we have within PVH. So we've actually made that as a focus area for how can we go through and look at recruiting some of those in. I think all that's true on the women's side also. I'd like to say within our organization, I probably have the most diverse organization within PVH. We are pretty well balanced. Our HR team provides us with those insights, but there's always room for improvement. And especially, Iris, I will tell you, for women, it is an opportunity. So you want to make sure that you run with that opportunity, because one, I think it's a great career, But also, there's a lot of open space that you'd be able to make a difference in.
That's great. And I think our last question is going to come from our own Federico Gutierrez. And Alberto, so glad to see you this afternoon, but Federico is the new you. You got to come meet this young man. Federico, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. And once again, congratulations, Eileen. Thank you for being here with us. I had a question. You touched on earlier that a threat to the retail industry was retail not catching up to how the consumer wants to shop. We live in a world where you can buy a Tesla with Bitcoin. And do you think that with increasingly digital shopping, e-commerce tendencies, and adoption of cryptocurrency and that blockchain is necessary to become mainstream and will become mainstream within retail?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. We're actually looking at that. We actually are trying to understand. It's not as widely used in the retail apparel space. I mean, we use blockchain, but we use blockchain not from a payment method, but really for literally tracing the life of the product itself. We haven't dabbled in those. We've looked at, is that something that we want? We've seen some other retailers make statements, but no one has that yet as this, standard payment type. The other thing that we're also trying to understand is from a clearinghouse perspective. So when you take credit, you usually have a third party who does your credit management in terms of what are the banks out there? Who is that partner in the space that we would be able to look at? Because we have a lot of folks who are saying it would really be great to take Bitcoin. The question that we have is then how do we validate the Bitcoin? How do we go through and get it in? So I think it's probably still a little too new for us, but is definitely one of the things that we have on the list of areas that we need to still focus on and look at as the market gets a little bit more mature. How do we, and it may be just in the digital space, how do we begin to dabble in accepting those?
Thank you.
That is wonderful. Thank you. What a great question, Federico. And I think it's only appropriate that the talented students who ran this program today, Angela and Brianna, could have a last comment.
Hello.
Hi, Angela.
Hi. Yes, thank you so much for coming today and for congratulations again for winning the award. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I second everything that Angela said. Thank you so much for your time and for being so willing to share your story with us today. And again, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Brianna.
And in concluding, it's important that we again thank our sponsors and corporate partners. Again, Josh Silverman, CEO of Etsy, thank you. Our visionary sponsors, Browseware, and Kristen, please come and see us again. Morgan Stanley, the PVH Foundation, PwC. Our supporter sponsors, including Accenture, ADP, High Point, National Grid, New York Presbyterian, and Qualitest. And our friend sponsors, Seventh Online, Blue Yonder, Genpact, HKA, Infosys, MuleSoft, and PACE alum and Seidenberg board member Mike Zabranik, who's the Senior Vice President and CIO at Fiserv, and Sirius, Tillerman, Verizon, and Wilkie Farr and Gallagher. I am so grateful to all of you for being here. And Eileen, there is never enough time. I mean, maybe we should take a 15-minute break and come back until midnight, kind of like a clubhouse room. It'll just be all Eileen Mahoney all the time. There are dozens of great questions that have come in. So, and they deserve to be answered. So we're going to have you back soon. As always, we appreciate you very much. Det, would you like to just review our upcoming events?
Absolutely. Again, Eileen, reiterate our heartfelt thanks for the generosity of your partnership, for allowing us to celebrate you and what you represent. And as Jonathan shared, Eileen's recognition is part of our exciting 2021 Seidenberg Innovation Award Series. For those of you who joined us from the beginning, we had the incredible privilege to also honor Sigal Zarmi, who was the International Chief Information Officer and Global Head of Transformation of Morgan Stanley on April 6th. Today, we had a special recognition for Eileen. And May 13th, please join us if you can to celebrate the accomplishments and leadership of Josh Silverman, who is the Chief Executive Officer for Etsy. If you have any questions, please contact me. And again, thank you for your time, your support, and your friendship.
Yes, and really, really grateful to the wonderful questions. Again, Kristen, Kenny, and Alexis, thank you for that wonderful question. Rich, Kevin, and to our wonderful students. I wish all of you a great evening. We'll see you all soon. Have a good night.